because if we remain with the people reliant on us, then it dies once we leave. So that's one of them. And the other one is teach to teach, which is part of that I just explained. As soon as we land, we want to make sure that we're looking out for people who could be successors to this idea. And once we find that, and we find people who are interested in the project, who have like maybe a basic level of business acumen, but mainly drive. As long as they have drive, that I feel that they can be taught. And then we make sure that over the length of those 5 years, we have a cohort of people that know exactly what they need to know to be able to take it over. So I'm a dancer as well. So one of the things we did was through the performing arts. So we have a festival in Sierra Leone every year. And so I partnered with Patriotic Advocacy Network, which is a youth empowerment organization, and Yusufu Jallo, who is a storyteller. And together we kind of developed an idea they had already started, but we created different spin-offs for the project. So it started off with just a day, and with my addition, we added a couple of weeks of training, which was for the actual performing arts, obviously, but also business, and teaching them how to create partnerships, teaching them how to raise funds, teaching them how to do a marketing plan, all of those kind of stuff. And from that group, we found people who were real rising stars. Like one of our success stories is this one girl who, within a year actually, because she had actually started she was already selling, I think it was flavored milk, that she was selling at traffic lights and things like that. And we asked her questions like, so where do you get these from? The ingredients themselves. We taught her about the idea of supply chain. We taught them about the idea of clients and what that means. Like, how do you get recurring clients? And we coached her. So we partnered her with someone who was an entrepreneur back home as well. Came back a year after, and she had employees, and she was selling these things to at a commercial level to the the commercial district in Sierra Leone. And it was incredible, to see that turnaround. And that is something where we are having that impact on the community within that family, but there is also finances, there's cash flow coming through it as well. So for me, that's where my interest comes. So now I've seen it working. Whenever I'm doing something, I'm trying to find ways where cash flow can exist within us, like a social impact project.
Thank you for that. So there was something that actually I was jotting down when you were explaining before in the initial part of the explanation
Mm,
about NGO, that if they were to leave Sierra Leone today, they will leave a hole in the people's heart. Basically, okay, I understand that means that the people will be left handicapped. They
mm,
will not be able to solve the problem which the NGO are solving for them.
mm,
That seemed to me to be very interesting, because that sort of epitomize the situation that we have in Africa, or the so-called relationship between Africa and the West. It has
mm-hmm,
somehow it has been sold into us that we need to depend on somebody who will take care of us, who will help us, who will provide for us,
mm.
like little babies, like children. That is hurting us. Sometimes we don't know, but it is hurting us a lot. So the question is, through what you are doing, through your work as a social entrepreneur, how do we move away from this? How could the work that you are doing in social entrepreneurship
Mm.
help to divert the attention away from NGO, so that the local people cannot look at themselves and their ability to solve their local problem without necessarily rely on the NGO, who might be in the pretense of helping Africans? Okay, I don't know if that is clear.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think the first one is intention. Um, I mean, I don't have anything against people who want to help people. Um, Especially if you're in a position where you have resources and you see a gap or a solution to a problem. I don't want to give the impression that I don't think that's a good idea, because I think the world needs more of that. But intention is key. So for me, and I'll give you a great example, like a story of this. When the first year I did my festival, when I got there, I had all these dreams of grandeur. I knew exactly what we were going to do. And on day one, and I had a team that came with me, I told them all, yeah, we're not doing that at all. Like, we would be more harmful to their progress if we did what we planned to do, which was effectively act as if we were coming there to save in some way, shape, or form. But the problem with that is that with a savior, like you said, it means that there is a victim. And what I realized upon landing is that actually there is no victim in this situation. There is value on both sides of this fence. It's just exchange. And so the first thing I would say to anyone who's looking to get involved, no matter which side are you on, is having a kind of relationship where you're both on the same level. And you've got to have the intention. And it's the same with, for example, coaching. You've got to assume the person is able, and so that will be the first thing. And that honestly will affect how you build your business, your strategy. So in our case, there was the out in five policy, there was teach to teach, because I went there with the intention that I want the people I'm helping to be able to help themselves in a relatively short period of time. For me personally, there is no reason why I should still be there 30, 40, 50 years later if it's a problem I'm solving with a small group, which is where I find it painful when I look at how many NGOs are in Sierra Leone 60 years later, The other thing that I would suggest is having teams which are built with both sides. One of the problems we have in the West, in the diaspora, is that we are exposed to certain ways of thinking that we assume to be the best. I'm living in UK right now, and there's definitely, and this is something I've had to really check about myself, is there's an element of British Empire thinking, the idea that we are the greatest and we own the world. And I'm sure the States and the rest of the West have different elements of that as well. And that can be really, it can be really detrimental to the relationships we have with the people we're trying to help. Because what that ends up happening is we hear something which is completely culturally accurate to their surroundings, but because we have another idea which works where we're from, we impart that and we force it onto them to override. And one of the things I found that is also a problem is that if the people we're helping also have that image, they will completely put aside their ideas and just say, yes, anything you want. And that can be detrimental as well. And an example, I have a friend of mine who's an anthropologist, and she did a project in Zimbabwe, I think. And she was working on a farm there, and she said they sent her there because they were having problems with the crop yielding, the turnover. And they had sent all these vehicles, all this machinery and equipment to go and help solve the problem. But then after staying there for, I think it was like a month or so, she realized that none of that would work because the roads don't work.